And so Winchester's design was accepted. This was in August of '41. Took time to build tooling. General Motors built most of the tooling off of the prints. And by June of '42, the first carbine rolled off the assembly line in Dayton, Ohio. And Winchester was a little behind that because they had been building M1 Garands. So Winchester's first M1 Carbine was delivered in the first week of October of '42. So a few months behind General Motors. Then at that time, the call went out to these other manufacturers here. If you can zoom in there, you'll see them listed. What's curious is, along with General Motors, this is the Dayton, Ohio plant. This is General Motors' Saginaw, Michigan plant. And this is General Motors' Grand Rapids, Michigan plant. What's curious is, you'll notice none of them know anything about firearms. And the great story of the M1 Carbine is, in the time of need, America came together with some tooling to produce over 6 million identically interchangeable pieces of equipment. What a great testament. Could we do it today? I don't know. Hopefully we never have to. So, as with a lot of things that are manufactured, with each passing month of any product, doesn't have to be a military product, changes are made in the automobile industry, any kind of manufacturing, and improvements are made. And it can be well documented that the last built is probably the best because they've figured out everything. But in the world of collecting, it is the first built that people seem to gravitate to. And I can understand that. That's the design that was accepted. These are General Motors. They're the only manufacturer here, along with Winchester, that made them through the full duration of the build of M1 Carbine. M1 Carbines were never made again, and they weren't made before. Unlike Garands, which were made from 36 to 56. 1911s, God knows, they'll be making them for another 100 years. And with anything else, whether it's modern technology or not, nobody has ever built that many in that short a period of time. And understand that, yes, 6 million, but don't think about it as being mid-42 to mid-45. It's really 18 months, because these all kicked in between January of 43, and their contracts all ended in the spring of '44. In 18 months, they built basically 5 million. They way overbuilt what Army really thought they needed. They started out thinking they needed 1 million. Pretty soon they had 6 million. But anyway, it's a great testament to that. Because I mentioned improvements are always made, I show here 3 basically basic presentations of the style. So this is the first generation, this is a middle generation, and I've tried to explain here in those cards what some of the features are that they changed. Literally, by the time you get to here, I often joke, every part changed except the butt plate screw, and it's really true. Every part was modified. Every part is interchangeable with the first one, and the first parts are interchangeable with the last one, but this was the perfected model. So the M1 Carbine that you see, and you'll see in all pictures from the Second World War, looks like this, because all of these manufacturers made this type. Only some made a few of the second generation, but only Winchester and General Motors made the final variation. So at the end of conflict, the Department of Army said in their PM 9-1276, we want all the carbines that are in inventory, in arsenals or in the field, to be updated to look like this. And it was an easy enough thing for an armorer to do. They pulled the front sight off, they put on a bayonet lug. Bayonets weren't invented when they issued carbines, they had fighting knives. So that's why you don't see bayonets on World War II carbines. They came out way too late. and they weren't going to send a bayonet out if somebody was carrying this. So armorers were instructed to pull the sight off, put this on. There were some other changes in the safety, in the mag release, and of course an obvious thing was a better adjustable sight, which field company armorers were sent these sights, and they were encouraged to ask your troops to bring it in and have you push out this sight and put that in. So a lot of people, you know, in the collecting world don't like things messed with, but actually an early carbine with this sight, if it was done by the Army, it's perfectly understandable. But in any event, that is the progression. Now, an interesting thing happened in going into 42 was they realized that this was a little bulky even for some forward troops, and that was the paratroopers. So GM came up with this wire frame, and obviously you can see an Overton company made these stocks, and very few actually of the 6 million were produced. Down here you'll see 140,000 were produced in 2 batches. This is the first batch, and this is the second, and you'll see some of the changes. However, Army realized, and everything is about dollars and cents, they realized after they ordered them that, you know, all they had to do was pull this band off, pull the action out, and then put it into the stock. So they ordered another several 100,000 stocks. And today you will find this configuration with any of these makers in it. And that's what Army wanted done. Going into Korea, this didn't happen during the Second World War, it happened in the 50s. And it's a U.S. military decision, but if you want one that was actually built this way originally, only General Motors made them. And General Motors, Dayton, Ohio, inland. And it would be one of those serial number ranges for these two. So this example I brought is just of interest because most people who collect anything from, I guess, from military things to automobiles don't always know who the very first person who touched it was. And I bought this from the family because this gentleman, gone obviously, Lieutenant Peterson, took an M1 carbine out of a 10 carbine crate, the way Winchester shipped them, in the South Pacific in 1943. And guess what? He was a Navy lieutenant. He put it in his locker on his ship, and it never saw the light of day. And he brought it home. And a curious thing is, a little bit off the record, but his son Bill told me in the provenance here, it was a CB lieutenant that said to him, "Hey, you know what? Would you like a Winchester carbine? I'd like one too. You take 2 of them, put them on the ship, and then send me one when you get home." And that's exactly what happened. So this is it. It's never been touched by anybody but his family. And you know, they actually did shoot a few rounds through it, but it's pretty pristine. It's pretty much a unused carbine. This, if you scan over here, is just a basically a display of all things a carbine, that from ammunition to the versatility of the M1 carbine. It can launch grenades, albeit not nearly the trajectory that you'd get off of a Garand, but it used the same style launcher as a Garand. A Garand used a different barrel adapter. This is a M1 carbine barrel adapter, so a Garand is a little different. And then there, of course, there's a blank style cartridge to detonate that. Don't want to be using a live ball ammo, but anyway, the versatility of this, it was a rear echelon rifle, but it certainly was put to use doing a lot of different jobs. As the war neared the end, Army decided to get Winchester and General Motors to develop a select fire carbine, and they did. And with that, they developed a higher capacity magazine, 30 rounds. And that saw basically action in Korea and Vietnam, of course, in Vietnam. The carbine, as is shown up there on the earlier display, was deactivated in '73. So it saw its time in both Korea and in Vietnam. This part of the display, below the descriptive chart that was used to educate soldiers in a classroom environment. I added this embellishment, but they had these charts that they could read the nomenclature. So this is a Winchester first variation. Again, very similar to the inland first variation. This was built on the 82nd day of Winchester production. And then, again, as I said earlier, early versions are desirable, but I would argue strongly that the best rifle is at the end. So this was 765 days into production on July 13th of 45, and I don't have to tell you that was the end of hostilities. So rifles like this went into armors and really never got any field action unless they went on to Korea. I strongly believe this never went on to Korea basically because of very little wear. A battle rifle is a battle rifle, but a lot of them spent time in arsenals and armories. But in any event, again, this is a description like the earlier one of the beginning and the end of production. Now here's kind of an interesting anomaly. Everybody realizes today the world of night vision. I mean, you can buy them at a sporting goods store if you want to have night vision. But it all started, at least militarily, with the M1 carbine. The work started in World War II. It really progressed in Korea. You could sit there on the DMZ and in Korea, and if you were hunkered down at 3 in the morning, you didn't know it was 50 yards out there, you were more than happy to have this. Now, you weren't running around with this thing because this has a backpack here with a battery, transformer, and everything. Pretty hefty, shoulder straps. So you hung this on your back, but basically you just use this to transport it. Then you got where you were going to get down in your bunker and connected everything. You've got a 6-foot cable, and you sat there, and the imagery was, initially it was rudimentary, but it was enough. It was a green silhouette out there about 50 yards. And remember, they didn't put this on a Garand. A couple of reasons. They didn't want to add the extra weight to a Garand, and if you were using night vision, you weren't looking 300 yards out there. You wanted to know from here to that wall if someone was coming at you. And that's exactly what this did. So they made about 20,000 of these, curiously enough, same as the 20,000 volt. But very quickly in the world of electronics, you have today the Starlight scopes and everything else. So, but this was it. This was the beginning. It's like the first transistor radio or the first computer that was the size of your living room. This is where night vision started. And then finally, as we move from that, my final statement to anybody seeing the display is, what's the real historic significance of the carbine project? And as I say here, yes, the winning design was last minute, and that's true, and a greater number of these were built than any other firearm, and the carbine was designated an M1 carbine, but it in no way was a small version of the Garand. So those are true, but the real truth is down here in this paragraph. It basically says it's an amazing manufacturing accomplishment that 6 million in a year and a half could be made that were all interchangeable. But yeah, the carbine lasts as far as a popular firearm in the minds of sporting enthusiasts. So that's the story I'm telling, and hopefully I'll be standing here for the next 2 days.